Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome into another very exciting Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants broadcast. Today marks like the 1 month mark till the end of our school year after what will have been over 400 broadcasts featuring the coolest scientists and explorers on planet Earth. So if you're joining us for the first time, welcome in. We are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world, and everything we do is on our YouTube channel. So if you want to check out like this broadcast or like 4,000 other broadcasts in like 3 weeks or 3 years, you can head there and do just that. Now, before I introduce our special guest host joint person working with me today, I do want to note we do have a Kahoot today. So between our talk and our Q&A, we are going to have a little 4-question quiz to test your understanding, have a little bit of fun. Should be a good time. So feel free to sign into that on a separate tab right now. Now, earlier this year, we got chatting, finally, long overdue, with the amazing folks at the Center for Global Education. They do some of the best work in Canada and the world, for that matter, on bringing epic programs like this into classrooms like yours. And so it's long overdue that we're working with them, but I'm very excited they're joining us today. So before I introduce our speaker and our epic World Day of Plant Health broadcast, I'm going to bring in Rebecca Moon from the Center for Global Education to tell you a little bit about the amazing work that they do and how you and your classroom can get involved. So Rebecca, welcome to the broadcast. So nice to have you on finally.
Hello, thank you very much for the introduction, Jesse. I'm very excited to be here. I have a couple exciting things to talk about, so I'm going to hop right into it.
Let's do it. Bring up, I know you've got some great slides for us, and as you're pulling those up, I'll just a big welcome. We've got kids in Rwanda today, in Nicaragua, in Brazil, all across Canada and the US. It's a really exciting audience thanks to you. So do tell us more and take us away.
Awesome. So I'm going to tell you guys a bit about our Decarbonize program, which is kind of why this Plant Health Day event is happening. So the Decarbonize program is actually the world's largest climate program involving children. So we have hundreds of schools in over 75 countries. You can see our map here of all the schools you can get connected with if you're in the program. So you can talk to South America, Africa, Europe, Asia, Australia. And basically the whole idea is that all of these schools come together and they share their thoughts and ideas about climate change. So we do this a few different ways. The first one is virtual meetings like this. Some of them are bilateral pairings where you partner with the school and you get to ask them about what it's like to live in Colombia and what climate change looks like in Nigeria. We help students develop action projects. So maybe making compost bins in your school or raising money to put on solar panels. And the really cool part is we bring students to the annual UN climate conferences, which are called COPs. So this last picture is just from our last biodiversity COP in Colombia. So we actually help teach students how to speak about what climate change means to them and their demands for climate change in front of world leaders that will be at the UN. Now, in order to do that, students will get together every year and write a climate manifesto. If you want to scan this QR code, you're welcome to click around on it. We can also share the link afterwards. But basically, each climate manifesto has a theme. This year's theme is climate education. So if you want your thoughts and ideas about climate education heard by leaders in your country and leaders around the world, this is the best way to do it, is by getting your voice into our annual climate manifestos. Now, within these papers, you'll notice we have some demands. This one was from our community action, but you'll notice we also have some survey data. So we actually collect survey information from students all around the world, and we use this to help develop our ideas for the manifesto. So this paper does not come from me, old woman. It comes from young people like you in countries around the world. So are you passionate about sustainable transportation or farming or climate education? We take those ideas from the survey and we put them into this paper and world leaders read it. If you would like to get involved in Decarbonize, yes, you can join the program, but you can also get involved in small ways. So the best way that it would be great if everybody here today could do is to fill in our Global Student Environment Survey. So again, we take the data from the survey and we present it at those COPs. So your name could actually end up in one of these manifestos. And if not, at least your ideas will be there because you're adding to that global voice. And the second way you can get involved, if you're like, I'm not really much of a writer, but I do like art, is to add your art to our Art for Action gallery. So we actually print off and bring art with us every year to these conferences. And the Canadian Pavilion hosts an art gallery for us every year. So if you're a Canadian student and you're watching this right now, you can create an art piece, you upload it onto our website, and Mark Carney, our new Prime Minister, will actually see that piece of art while he's at COP. So we have presidents and prime ministers and environment ministers looking at these pieces of art before they're going in to make those decisions about pipelines and protected areas and microplastics, right? So that piece of art could actually make an impact on someone who's making a decision for your future for climate. So filling in the global survey and adding some art to the gallery are two really easy ways to dip your toes into the Decarbonize program. It is open to all grades. So if you are a class watching it right now, or you have an environmental club at your school, just visit decarbonize.me. And that's the best way to kind of get involved in the project if you want to get a little bit more involved and meet with some of the schools. But yeah, it's open to everyone in all countries. So we would love to have a few more schools join us this year. We just did our launch a couple weeks ago, but we're still accepting applications. So that's it for me. I'm really excited to hear what our speaker has to say about plant health, and I'm very happy to be here.
Very, very cool. Thanks, Rebecca. Man, I wish there were things like this when I was a student. This is so, so cool. So we're going to make sure that all our classes have that, of course. And our big link is decarbonize.me. You guys can all check that out. We'll make sure it's in all your inboxes when we are done. Rebecca, thank you so, so much. And as you said, we are diving in today with the World Day of Plant Health. And so we wanted to bring in one of our most featured scientists in the history of exploring by the seat of your pants, Dr. Lauren Erland, joining us from UFV in lovely British Columbia. So she's joined us a few times to talk about plant intelligence. She's going to feature a little bit of that today, but she's added a few special slides just for us. So without further ado, Dr. Erland, thank you so much for joining us today, and welcome back to the program.
I'm so excited to be here again, Jesse. Thank you. I'm not sure how I convinced you guys to let me to keep coming and just like trying to brainwash incredibly interesting plants are, but hopefully we can keep that rolling. So I'm just going to hit play here. Can you see that? Oh, did it just...
Nope, should be good. It's perfect.
Can you see it?
Couldn't be better. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, it's a miracle. Okay, so what I want to start with is a question for all of you out there, and that is, do you think plants are intelligent? You think, or are they just kind of a lump that sits there like your maybe your younger sibling, one of your friends at school? I'm not sure. Do you think they're intelligent?
Rebecca and I are nodding our heads, and our YouTubers, if you guys want to chime in, we'd love to have you on the trigger finger there. But yes, I think coming into this program, we might have triggered a few people to think that plants are intelligent. Certainly, if it's the opposite, it would be a different kind of broadcast. So yes is our tentative kind of confused answer, Lauren.
Amazing. Okay, so I mean, I am biased and I would totally agree. And I'm going to take a guess that maybe the students who are joining us on YouTube might have maybe thought of some of these things when I said plant intelligence, maybe a talking plant, or, mind control, or kind of the things you think about in cartoons, like, poison ivy action heroes, or, reanimated plants. But I want to kind of switch the way we're thinking about this. So when I say plant intelligence, maybe you say, Lauren, you are crazy. And I want to give you the logic for why I'm actually, at least in this way, not crazy, and why plants are actually super, super smart and super, super cool. Not that I'm introducing any bias here. So I want to start by thinking about what being smart is, what intelligence is, and really in kind of a scientific context, how we think about this is really related to learning and behaviors. So how can we assess learning and behaviors in plants? Obviously, they don't, talk the way we do. They don't get up and move around. We can't put them in like a rodent maze and test them, but there's different ways we can assess this. And one of the best ways I like to think about plant intelligence is by thinking about senses. And so I know it's a little hard to answer questions, but I want everyone to just like stop for a minute and think, how many senses do you think plants have? If you had to come up with a number, and I want everyone to stop and then count on maybe their fingers, senses you think plants have, hold it in your mind, come up with an answer.
6. That's my answer. Oh, 13 plus.
Jesse, you're so far under, more than double. So we have 5 senses, but plants have so many more. They're actually much more perceptive of their environments than we are. And the way we talk about plant senses is we actually call them tropisms, if we're going to get sciencey about it. And so plants can see things and sense things and feel things. They know which way is up. They know which way the sun is. They can sense weird things that we can't even feel. So they can feel like the magnetic field. They can feel electric fields. They can, avoid shade, move towards the sun. And we'll talk about some different examples of these, but here's where we're going to start. So if we think about plant senses and we think about how we sense things, we often think about, if we're smart and we have senses, we must have a brain that's controlling us, just like humans, right? But plants are smart and intelligent and use their senses in a different way. So if we think about a plant and we try to make it analogous to a human, which is pretty hard because obviously I am not a plant, but if you think about tipping me upside down and putting me on my head, this might actually line up with how a plant works a little bit more than if we were to kind of compare us standing up side by side. So plants do a lot of their sensing and their processing, we think, in their roots. And we think about, where they move. If you think about pea tendrils, where are those? They're up on the tops of their heads, waving around. Their reproduction is up on their head. They breathe, through their stomata. They might do excretion of things through their leaves as well as through the roots. So if we think about it, where do the nutrients come in? How do plants eat? It happens in their roots. So if we can kind of think about the plant like a person turned on its head, right? And so when we think about that, we can think, okay, so plants kind of have the same orientation. Plants also have something that we have, which is neurotransmitters and neurohormones. So we have melatonin to make us sleepy, serotonin to make us happy. You might have adrenaline that makes you have your fight or flight response, and maybe dopamine makes you want to hug your sibling more. Plants have all of these same things, but they do different things with them. And then they have a whole bunch more because plants are way better chemists than we will ever be. And so I'm going to start by giving you one example of how plants use these neurohormones to see. So we know plants can see, and I'm going to show you an example in a video here that will prove this to you in case you're skeptical of me. Okay, so we've got some little seeds here germinating. They're growing up. They don't know what's going on in the world. They're being newly born. They're looking around and they find where the light is. So at the beginning, the light is to the left of the screen here. And you can see the plants growing towards it. And then, whoa, the light moves to the other side and the plants switch super quickly. So if we just rewind that back, oh, it's going to do it for us. It's a Monday, guys. So we see the plants move as the source of light moves. And so these are plants seeing, and they all move in unison, maybe not quite at the same amount of time. But this is plants seeing very specifically, the light is on the left. We're going to grow to that. That's how we get our food. That's how we get our energy, is from sunlight. And then as soon as it moves, the plants move as well. And the way plants do this is through neurohormones, or in plants, we call them phytohormones. And so what happens is you've got all these neurochemicals that are in the plant cell, and they kind of follow where the light is. When the light moves, the neurotransmitters or the plant hormones help the plants to move around and see and adjust their behavior in response to that light stimulus in this case. So the plants see and they can move towards the sun, or maybe it's too much light, the plants can choose to move away from the sun or move towards the shade, depending on what their environment, what their situation is, because plants can't get up and kind of like move to the shady spot. They can't, move their umbrella down the beach. They kind of have to work with what they got. Plants can also talk. So plants can talk to insects. I think this is the one that maybe we all think about the most. So if you think about, you've got a flower, it needs to get pollinated. Plants will actually send out a bunch of different chemicals, and some of those chemicals can actually look the same way as like insect pheromones. So they can trick the insects into saying like, come over here. I kind of smell like a cute insect. Come check me out. You might also have a specific, we like flowers because they smell pretty. The flowers are doing that on purpose to say, hey, I smell great. Come, I'll trade you some of my nectar, and you can take some of my pollen away to spread it around so that I can get my reproduction to happen. So plants can be very, very manipulative when talking to insects, trying to have pollination and kind of create their next generation. But plants can also talk to each other, and plants can talk to other insects in all sorts of crazy ways. So if I'm a plant hanging out doing my thing and I've got some aphids that land on me, or some other pests or caterpillars are trying to eat me, I can actually send out a bat signal and have another insect that will eat the insect that is eating me come and kill that insect for me by sending out those signals. I can also talk to other plants and say, hey, look out, there's a bunch of insects coming for us. Like there's a whole caterpillar army coming. Watch out, get ready. And then the plant can start to prepare its defenses, make itself taste bad, maybe start calling more of those other defender insects in, and they can mount a whole coordinated army response of plants. And they can do this and make decisions about how they do this by recognizing each other too. So there are these really, really cool studies in California where they've actually shown in something called sagebrush. So these are the plants you think about when you kind of think about the Wild West movies, where they can say, Okay, these ones I'm related to, so I want to talk to them the loudest, and the other ones, maybe I'll ignore them. I want, like, I want my mom, my dad, my sisters, and my cousins to make sure they're best prepared before I worry about the people down the street. I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing. It's just a choice the plants are making, and they are making this choice, and they can say, I want to talk to you first and then someone else later. And so there's some really cool studies that have been done in sagebrush. And so plants are recognizing each other and making decisions how they communicate. Plants can also feel. So I don't know how many of you might have had a mimosa plant at home. If you have one, it's probably died. If you're anything like me, they're so hard to keep alive. They're basically just melodrama plants. But if you haven't seen one, this is what happens when you touch one of these plants. So this is a mimosa plant or a sensitive plant. You touch the bottom of it and the leaves slowly start to close. I mean, it's pretty quick by plant standards, but we can see them move in. And why are plants doing this? Again, this is to protect from insects feeding them. So, your plant, you're hanging out, something comes to eat you, you can't run away from it, you have to fight. And so the plants, what they'll do is they close up and it makes it harder for the caterpillars to eat them. But it also, if you're like a big caterpillar trying to balance on this little leaf that's all of a sudden squashed up, it kind of just turns into a slide, right? And you slide right off of it. So the plants are being really smart about how they choose to move as soon as they sense that contact of anything on them. But if you're a plant just living out in the world, so you're a mimosa plant, you're outside, you're going to get touched by a bunch of things or come in contact with things that are not insects that you are not worried about. So maybe it starts to rain, or maybe something walks by that's loud and clompy. Maybe like me going out for a botany walk. I'm not particularly threatening to it, and it takes a lot of energy to close up all those leaves. So plants can actually make a decision and say, this thing, yes, it has come in contact with my leaves, but I don't think that this is going to eat me. I don't think it's a threat. And they will actually learn to not respond to those. So there's a really cool study that was done, I don't know, a decade ago now, where they actually took mimosa plants, and if you keep dropping them, eventually they'll stop responding. In the short term, it just might be that they're exhausted and they've given up and they're like, oh, whatever, I don't have any energy to close my leaves anymore. But they found that if they take those same plants and a month later, they start dropping them again, the plants will be like, aha, we've been down this road before. I know that you just dropped me for fun because you're bored. I'm not going to bother closing my leaves because nothing bad happens to me. I'm going to save my energy. I'm just going to hang out and wait for you to get tired this time, and then I can carry on with my day. So these plants are learning and remembering. And how do plants kind of create these triggers? One of the best ways that we've learned how to understand this is actually in Venus flytraps. So these are carnivorous plants. And I think most people are probably familiar with them. You've got the little Venus flytrap, and the fly buzzes in, sits down, comes to hang out. It's moving around, and eventually the trap will close. Again, they've got the same problem that the mimosas have. Anything that's sensing something outside in the world, you might have bits of just leaf or dirt, or things that are not tasty, yummy fly food landing inside, and you want to be able to not close up your trap to eat nothing. You want to make sure, if you're going to use all of that energy and secrete all of those juices to turn your fly to goo, that you're doing it because there's a fly there. So I'm going to show you this video, and then we're going to talk about what happens in this video. So we'll watch it the first time here. Okay, fly trap still open. We do something else and it closes. Okay, so what is happening here? So what is happening in this is that you can see that little stick, someone's taken a toothpick and they're touching, you can see these kind of like glowy things there inside the trap. Those are called trigger hairs. So they're little tiny hairs that the plants have. And they think, if you think about it, if you got a piece of leaf, it's just going to fall into the trap. It'll touch it once and it'll kind of stay still. But if you've got a fly in there, it's going to be moving around, maybe buzzing a little bit. And so it's going to hit something like this trigger hair multiple times. And so what the plant does is, when you touch the trigger hair one time, you see this kind of green wave that expands out. That is those neurohormones and calcium kind of in action. They're sending out a message. They're saying, whoa, something is here. And it's thinking about it, and it's like, but it could still be a leaf, so I'm not going to close. And now we touch it a second time and it's like, bingo, we have a fly in here. Time to close up our mouth, start chewing and digesting. And you see that it takes those 2 times you hit that hair for it to close. So plants have learned to not waste their energy on just bits of leaves. They've come up with ways to make decisions so that they can spend their time and their energy wisely. And I think we should just watch it one more time because it's so cool. What do you think, Jesse?
Love watching videos multiple times, especially this one. It's one of my favorite videos ever.
Ready? Ready?
Go.
There goes.
Oh, poor fake fly.
I know, it's so sad. But plants got to eat. Okay, so at the beginning, so much fun. I could sit there and watch that video all day long. I'm completely out of control. But if we think about plants, so we talked about plant intelligence at the beginning. We thought about kind of maybe like what we thought about was like kind of cartoon plant or, some sort of villain from a Disney film. But when we talk about plant intelligence, this is what I see when I hear plant intelligence. I think about plants making decisions about their environment so that they can continue to survive and hopefully thrive. And this is going to become more and more important, as we start to see our environment changing around us. As we start to have more and more stressful environments for plants to live in. So they're going to need to be able to make better and better decisions. And the smarter they are, the better chances that we're going to keep more of those plants around. And so what I want us to all take a moment is going back and answer our question again. What do we think? Do we think plants are smart? I'm hoping that everyone is maybe, if you were waffling about at the beginning, you have a stronger answer for me now.
The waffle days are over. We're all about pancakes now because waffles, it's so yesterday because plants are so smart. Yeah.
A little bit of maple syrup on top, I think.
Yeah.
So plants are super cool and they're super smart, and plants are actually very, very diverse in the way that they make their decisions. So I wanted to end this with a little bit of fun fact trivia for everyone to just give you a sense of how different plants are, because part of the reason they need to have all these different ways and all these different senses is because they're so different. They look different. They live in crazy different environments. So if you'll all humor me, let us all go on a fun plant fact journey, my favorite kind of adventure. So world's smallest tree. Jesse, I think you're my audience for this one. So
I'm live with you. I have no idea what the world's smallest tree is, although if I were to guess, given how I've seen stunted trees in Newfoundland where I live now compared to the bigger ones in Ontario, I'd say the world's smallest tree is like a foot tall, but it might be bigger than that. But let us know. I'm so interested.
Okay. Great guess, Jesse. The answer is actually way smaller.
Oh.
So the smallest tree in the world is only it can be like a centimeter tall. These are teeny, teeny, tiny. You can see those are lichens and some moss. I don't know if you can see the moss over there. Yeah. So this is called snowbed willow. It's a whole willow tree, and this is as big as it gets. Each of these like pairs of leaves, that's an entire tree. So this photo is taken up in Nunavut, but Jesse, you might have some of this around there if you go look real close.
I wouldn't have known that those were trees. So there might be like 1,000 of them in my garden. I'll go check when we're done this broadcast.
I will look forward to the report back. So world's smallest tree is actually a willow. Okay, next question. What about the world's smallest flowering plant?
Oh, well, see, my problem is that I went in with the tree way overblowing it. And now, but I would have said that the world's smallest flowering plant was about the size of that tree. So smaller, half that size, a quarter of that size. Tell us more.
What if I told you needed a microscope to see it?
My head exploding.
So there's something called duckweed, and this one is really cool because it actually is super responsive to all those different neurotransmitters I was talking about. This plant uses them really, really well. And this is duckweed. If you have gone out to like see a pond and it's covered in like a bunch of floating little tiny leaves, or maybe you have a home aquarium like I do, you might have floating plants on the top. They are teeny, teeny, tiny. And this is, these are the flowers, these kind of like yellow little blobs there. Yeah. This would be seen kind of under a microscope. So the whole cross section of that plant is probably like, half a centimeter. And then the flowers are even smaller. So duckweed.
Lauren, you've inspired me so much because I've seen duckweed all over the place in the world. And it's like, wow, cool. Like, it's cool to see like pond scum, but I didn't know that it had like a special like recordy designation. Makes me like it so much more.
This is my ode to pond scum. It turns out you should always look closer if it's green.
Always.
Okay. 2 more. So here's one. Are there plants in Antarctica? So we always think about the penguins. Yep. Penguins are cute, but I always think we should think about the plants. Are there plants in Antarctica?
I know this one because we've actually featured some Antarctic botanists before and some really, really cool freaky plants and things like plants and plant analogous things like lichens that are in Antarctica, and it's mind-blowing, but I'm so excited for you to tell us more.
Yes. So Jesse is right on this one. And I will say I've never been to Antarctica to see the plants down there, but one day on my bucket list, I'd love to see it. There are some crazy cool plants down there. So there's 2 species of flowering plants. They're both grasses, but there are mosses and liverworts and lichens and all sorts of cool algae down there. There's actually algae that live in perpetually frozen lakes down there. That will move around depending on the sunlight that's coming through those lakes, even though they're totally frozen all of the time. So yes, even though we think about ice and penguins and the seals eating the penguins, plants are there too, because plants are the coolest. So
we started 2025 live in Antarctica from a diver that was going into those lakes in the McMurdo Dry Valleys to see that algae. So there you go.
So cool. I'm so jealous of them. I'm going to have to see if they need someone to hold their bag next time.
Me too.
I volunteer. Okay, last question, everyone, for all of the plant fact cred. Are there any man-eating plants?
So Lauren and I were talking before this broadcast got underway because one of my favorite Simpsons moments of all times is the whole family falling into a giant plant that envelops them and Homer punches his way through. Is that sort of thing real or not? What do we think? We're getting a mix. So a little yes, a little no. I think it's no, Lauren, but tell us more.
Well, Jesse, you would be right. I don't know if that's unfortunate or fortunate, but here's my big but. There are plants that will eat small mammals. So this is an example of a giant pitcher plant. And so you can see this poor unsuspecting mouse on this slippery, slimy pitcher trap. And if it steps just wrong, it is going to fall into that and it will start being digested and eaten by that plant. So these pitcher plants, these Nepenthes raha, will actually be as wide as 40 centimeters, so something can fall into there. There's other species that are 1.5 meters tall that can also eat small rodents. So no, there aren't any man-eating ones yet, but they can eat small rodents. So you should always keep an eye out when you're in a forest you haven't been in, because you never know what the plants might do next. So with that, Jesse, I think that is the last fun plant fact I had, but I would love to answer some questions because all the students always come up with way better questions than I could ever come up with for fun plant facts, I have to admit. So
certainly do. We've got some great questions in our past. So we are going to dive in with our Q&A in just a minute, but we are going to begin with our Kahoot. So some of these were talked about explicitly. Some of these are even more cool plant facts for you to follow along with. But if you want to pull up this game pin, and Lauren, you can always help us out with the answers here. The faster you answer, the more points you get, and what you win is Lauren and I's everlasting respect. So we are going to get underway with this in just a second, and then we are going to dive in with all your questions. So YouTubers, please do share in the chat. We'd love to hear from you in just a second when we start our Q&A, but let me get this up and we will get started shortly. Welcome in to our Nicaragua classes, our Ontario classes, Ms. Ensom's group. We look forward to all your queries in 2.2 seconds, but let's get underway. Full classes at the ready. All right. And the drum roll.
I'm so excited.
I'm excited too. I set it up and I'm still excited because that's why I'm in this job. All right. Tallest tree in the world. We talked about the smallest tree. What's the tallest tree? Is it 50 feet, 100 feet, 200 feet, or over 300 feet tall? It's certainly in that picture. It looks very high. Let's see what we've got, what our folks say. Get those answers in. Get those answers in. Just a few more seconds. Lauren, it's pretty tall. It's gigantic.
Pretty tall.
So
I think
most of you got this right.
Students, yeah.
Have you seen these trees in person, by the way?
I have not seen these trees in person. I know. I'm like the worst plant nerd ever.
Yeah, just in British Columbia. You got no big trees in British Columbia, I hear. Actually, the tallest...
No big trees at all. We've got some pretty big trees out here, though. So
I was in Prince
Good
George.
job, Lovely Sphinx.
Lovely Sphinx is killing it so far. So BC has the tallest trees I've ever seen, which were over 200 feet. And that was pretty live. So, all right. How many senses do plants have? Who's paying attention? 5, 1, 13, or 143? Let's see what our answers are. Now, we have 5 as people. Some would argue a little bit more, but our plant friends, where are they at? Get those answers in. Yes, more of you in now. Fantastic. 4 more seconds. It's not one hand. It's not 2 hands. It's 13. Yes.
Yeah.
Way to go. Sweet. All right.
Everyone is paying attention. It's amazing.
Lovely Sphinx keeps our lead by a big margin going into question 3. Wow. They're going to have to throw off the leaderboard here. Number 3, plants have been around for how long? Okay. I wanted to throw this.
Tough one, Jesse.
This is tough. Is it 7 million years, about as long as first human ancestors? We have no idea. 240 million years, as old as dinosaurs, or approximately 450 million years, as long as sharks. Sharks are a good benchmark for a lot of things in the world. Sharks are really old. And
that's fair. I feel like we should make the plants the benchmark. It's very animal centric here.
You know what? Never mind the sharks. Next time I do this, it'll all be about the plants. And most of our audience got this right. Okay.
Well done.
Everybody. Okay. Let's see what that does to your board. Lovely Sphinx is dethroned by social rooster. Oh my goodness. It's crazy. We don't even know what's going on anymore. Okay. Final question for all the marbles, and then we're diving into questions. Where are places plants can't live? In Lauren's fantastic thing, the Antarctica was listed, so maybe that's your hint. So if the answer is none of the above, that means plants can live all of these places. Let's see what we think. Okay. Oh, none of the above. Most of you got this right. A few of you thought deserts. A few of you thought tundra, underwater. No, plants are in all those places. Plants are everywhere. Plants are. Where are there any places that plants aren't, as we see our leaderboard here, Lauren?
Wow. I mean, like maybe like inside of a volcano.
Yes. We don't want plants there. The volcano would melt them. And maybe the bottom of the ocean, the deepest parts of the ocean. No plants.
Deepest parts of the ocean.
Okay. Oh, barely a win by Social Rooster over Lovely Sphinx. Well, way to go, everybody. If you are any of these folks, let us know who you are. And we are going to dive in with Q&A for 10 minutes. So,
amazing. This is my favorite part, Jesse.
This is my favorite part, too. As much as I love hearing you talk about cool stuff, it's where the curiosity leads us that always is the most exciting time. So, our first question from the chat is, you showed the plants moving towards the sun in that cool video. What if the light were below? Like, this wouldn't happen on Earth, but if you were to do it in a lab, do the plants go straight through the Earth, or how does that all work? Do we know?
Such a good question. So the plants they would try and take the easiest path towards that light. So what that would happen probably is if it was below, what you would actually see is the light would have to come up from like around that pot probably. And so what you would see the plants do is they would curl or like go around and try and get down to it, because you wouldn't have the light come through the soil, right? The soil would block the light. But yeah, plants will grow all sorts of crazy directions. So yes.
Cool. So that's a new one for us. We haven't had that in any of our broadcasts with you before, but we have had this one, and I really like it. And it's always tough. Do you have a favorite plant? Is there a plant that gets you up out of bed in the morning? Just I know it's tough.
This is the worst question ever, but also the best question ever. So okay, so I've answered with different answers every time because it's like too hard to pick. But I think one of the ones I'll pick this time is on the very last slide. I showed everyone a picture that you probably didn't notice. It just kind of looked green in the background, but I call them Arctic coconuts. And so they're this. It's called sea beach sandwort. And it's actually a little plant that grows up in the Arctic. You can find it in Greenland. You can find it in Nunavut. Jesse, you probably have some there. And it actually makes its seeds in little floating pods. It grows on the beaches, and it sends out its little green seed pods into the ocean. And instead of being like ginormous coconuts, they're like, I don't know, like this big. And they do the exact same thing as coconuts, but they're what I'm now referring to as Arctic coconuts. So I think that's my favorite one for today.
Yeah. That's a great name. I like it very much. So you've several times referenced the fact that we would have plants in Newfoundland, where I live, that we'd have also up in the Arctic. And usually I take offense to that. Although today we have 10 centimeters of snow, and we are the coldest place in Canada outside of Iqaluit in Corner Brook, and it's horrible. And I can't wait for spring.
But you have super cool plants, so it's okay.
We do. We have pitcher plants. We have plants that eat things not as big as the one that's eating the mouse or rat there. But we do have those little pitcher plants that would eat insects and other things, which is super, super cool. Okay. So at your lab, and I want to highlight, if you want to check out more about Lauren's amazing work, check out berrylab.com. There's lots to discover there. Are there specific plants you work on as a scientist? Are there set species? You work on all species? What's the deal? Tell us more.
Ooh, great question. Okay, so in my lab, we are, as you might have guessed from the link, a berry research lab primarily. But that doesn't mean that we discriminate against all the other plants. So we've got all sorts of crazy cool plants from around the world. We've got berry plants from here in BC, and from coast to coast to coast. We've actually got some really cool little chickweeds that are from actually up on the Northwest Passage that we're doing lots of work on this kind of environmental understanding of plants. So how do they understand what's going on and make decisions? We've got plants from desert, actually. We talked about desert plants. We've got desert plants here from BC's Okanagan Valley that we're looking at how they understand smoke signals. Shout out to earlier broadcasts if you're interested in that. So we've got all sorts of crazy cool plants. And my aquarium behind me is actually all plants too. So
you had just put something new in that aquarium. Last time we talked, you had a new, like, awesome thing. Did it live?
Everything is alive.
You made it indicate earlier that you might occasionally kill a plant or two, like a sensitive mimosa, the drama queen. So
I mean, that's a fair question. Yeah, we've got something really cool in there called the lace plant, and it's the only plant in the world that kills its cells to make. It looks like its leaves look like a mesh screen, and it does that intentionally. It grows the leaves whole, and it kills out all of the cells in a pattern to make a mesh that we think is to help it grow in fast moving streams. So reduce the water resistance. So check out the lace plant. It is so cool. It's the whole reason I got the aquarium.
Other people go for goldfish. You go for a lace plant. Very, very cool. All right.
We're here for the plants.
Caesar in Nicaragua is our most active participant we've ever had in the history of exploring by the seat of your pants in 1 year. And he asked a question about Rafflesia flower, which is a really cool flower. And I'm going to put it in the chat in a second. Do you know if it's poisonous for humans or insects or anything? And can you tell us a little about the Rafflesia for anyone who has no idea what we're talking about or seen it before?
You know what? You've got me stumped on that one. I don't know that one.
Oh, I'm going to bring it up. Okay.
We're not yet friends, I should say.
They're the
totally
biggest.
Got me.
I think it's the biggest one flower in the world. That guy. Yeah.
Okay. I got it. I don't know about poison, but these plants smell terrible. And this is entirely my Latin failing me, but these plants are really cool for a couple of reasons. One, they're parasitic. So there's a whole group of plants that live out there in the world that don't actually make their own sugars. So I was talking about how plants get their energy from the sun by photosynthesizing and making sugar. These plants actually just steal it from other plants. That is their strategy, which is not very nice of them, but very, very effective. So they will actually grow specialized structures that they grow into other plants and pull out the sugar from them. And the other cool thing, I know.
Keep going. Sorry.
So cool. We could do a whole thing on parasitic plants. They're bananas. But the other cool thing that I think is what people mostly think about them is that they smell terrible. And that's because they're pollinated by flies. So they try to make themselves smell like rotting meat to attract those flies. It smells terrible, but the smell itself wouldn't be poisonous. It's a class of compounds called polyamines, if anyone's interested, that are actually the same things that happen in decaying flesh. So
nice. So it doesn't just smell like rotting meat. It's kind of like rotting meat. Like it. Yeah. So when I think of flowers, of course, I think of this nice floral fragrance, the butterflies flit up. But if you're trying to attract flies, you want to smell like a dead body because that's what flies love is dead bodies. So flowers have hit upon that.
100%.
Flowers, as you said, are way better chemists than we will ever be. And so that note leads us to our next question. It's the World Day of Plant Health. And so if you're a plant, do we use plants for health? And I know this could be a whole own talk on its own. So tell us more.
I mean, okay. So much fun. So yes, I mean, plants are food. Food keeps us healthy. But we also have, I think what people maybe think about most is medicinal plants. And I actually think I've got a whole other talk on this, Jesse, as you said. Medicinal plants are one of the coolest plants to actually study plant intelligence in because they are such good chemists. So plants make all sorts of things that we can take advantage of. In some cases, plants are usually making these compounds that we use for health uses to defend themselves. So one of the ones that I think that we all think about, maybe the top of mind might be antioxidants. You go to the grocery store, they're telling you should buy all these berries because they're high in antioxidants. Why do plants make antioxidants? They're actually there to defend the plant from stress. Whenever you get stress, you get oxidants. So you want to make antioxidants to get rid of them so it stops running around. They're kind of like out of control. Like if you send a toddler in with a sword to just like run around and hack at things inside of a plant cell, that's basically oxidants And so you like throw a bunch of blankets on them with the antioxidants to like tone it down. So I don't even remember where we started, Jesse. I just got so excited. But plants, yes, they're great for our health, for the same compounds they make to support their health.
Yeah. So many books about this, and I really encourage, if you want to learn more about some really cool things in plants too, Green Planet or The Green Planet by the BBC is the best series of all time on plants. And you and I have talked about this bunch, but The Light Eaters by Zoe Schlonger, maybe for our older audience, but an incredible book on all sorts of neat plant adaptations in all sorts of ways. So whether you're keen on health or intelligence or anything else, those are two great resources to learn more. Now,
absolutely.
As you know, time flies when you're having fun in these broadcasts, and we are nearing the very end. I know. I'm going to cry all day long after we do this. Yeah. Back to class. But before we wrap up, is there a way that you'd recommend, because you, like, again, for our students, if you are interested in anything in your life as Lauren is about plants, you're set. That could be history, that could be art, that could be whatever. It's always such a thrill to have you because of your passion and expertise. But if someone wanted to love plants as much as you, is there a place that you'd recommend they start? Is there an app or a tool or a thing that they should do in their garden that you would lead them to on the excitement train?
Absolutely. Okay, so thing one, go outside and look at plants. And like, don't just like stand there and like look at them from people height. Like, get down on your hands and knees and crawl around and look at the plants. There are so many embarrassing photos of me crawling around on the ground looking at plants because this is my favorite thing to do. And you would not believe the things that you will discover if you just start looking at plants really, really closely. If you've got like a magnifying glass for use for reading, like take it out with you and just start looking at the plants closer. And just the crazy shapes and structures and things they do is pretty inspiring. But one of the other things that I always recommend to everyone is iNaturalist actually has an app called Seek. And it is the funnest app. I think that is designed more for this audience, but I personally love it because what you do is like it's kind of like Pokemon, but for plants. So you go out. It also works for animals and insects, I think, but who cares about them? We just care about the plants. And it lets you ID plants, any plant that you see in the world with the camera on your phone. And then if you find enough of them, you get like awards and badges, and there's a whole leaderboard. Like you can actually like get all of the medals for it. And I would just like to brag and say that I have received the top status in Seek for the plant finding. So, no big deal.
I bow down to you for being a Seek master. We talk about Seek and iNaturalist. So Seek is a spin-off of iNaturalist, which is more for adults. Seek's like the kid or the Lauren version. And it's just the best tool ever designed to explore nature ever. I love Seek as well. It's so much more fun because you get the badges and it rocks. So get out, explore. There are plants near you anywhere you are. As we said, plants are in deserts. They're in the tundra. They're in the water. So if you go outside, you will see plants. And if you come to know them and appreciate them so much more, it just makes your understanding of the natural world so much richer and your life richer too, I would think, unless you're surrounded by those Rafflesia rotting corpse flowers, in which case, get out of there, because that's just too much to handle. So,
or just give them a closer sniff.
That too. The picture that I found of Rafflesia, is a person in like a gas mask, like a full out like World War II thing. So that's my go-to example. Anyway, Lauren, thank you so much for all of this today. It's such a thrill having you on. Again, we're going to pass along your amazing website, all sorts of cool resources. And then, of course, our Center for Global Education, amazing thing there. And you can check them out on Instagram and their website. So much more to explore and discover. But for now, we will wrap up our broadcast. If you're at home on YouTube and you want to scream and yell and annoy the principal, you have our permission. So please do. Thank you so much, everybody.